what I'm going to do tonight, as Martin said, talk to you about the things that we've been doing and some of the insights that perhaps we've picked up along the way. Yeah, without further ado, let me. It sounds like with a large construction audience that many of you know where we're coming from anyway. But for me, for us, there's a constant drive to get better at delivering projects, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're all here, regardless of the sector that we're in. So Sir Robert McAlpine's construction business solely focused in the UK, around about £1 billion a year turnover, around about 2,000 staff. Our niche, if you like, is delivering particularly complex projects. There's lots of iconic projects that we've delivered and continue to deliver, heritage, but then across the country, and ranging from the very small up to the very large. The market for construction is one of incredibly tight margins. And historically, we have been particularly poor as an industry at adopting digital technologies. There's all sorts of reasons for that. I think within that, data has ended up in that same place and of poor adoption. So despite all of those kind of challenges, I guess, we're very much coming into this world of data from a point of view of using it to inspire us, to be inspired. I certainly have been inspired by a lot of the things that I've heard through these meetups, and then being able to take some of those back into the business. And that really is then my job, is to help us make better use of our data. Martin's already talked about how we're going to try and do this. I think it's the first time that we've done something like this, so we'll see how it goes as a kind of conversational piece. But I've spoken before a couple of times in depth about the Construction Data Trust and some of the work that we've been doing there, and also about some of the I guess some of the early steps that we've taken. So this is a broader discussion, really. It's good to see so many people with a leadership background on the call. So hopefully we can answer some of those questions. There's a link to the previous presentations as well, if anyone wants to go and get those. So before I kind of dive into some of this, I want to just do a little bit of sort of scene setting or scale setting, because this is absolutely massive, and it's actually been quite a challenge to put together a presentation that kind of plots a course through the hugeness of all of this and the endless possibilities that we can see within it all. So two sort of separate scales for everybody to be having in their mind as we're thinking about this. It's almost the things that are inside the organization. So me, or you, or the teams that you're working in, the team that I'm working in, the projects that we're delivering, and in actual fact, that's to a large degree cross-organizational already. So there's already starting to be some change and some challenge, but then also inside our business. These are all things that are more or less within our grasp and within our gift to change for ourselves. And then there are all of these much sort of larger challenges, much more meatier things that are naturally going to take a lot longer to transform, to change. There's construction and the challenges that we have. Mentioned a few of those. There's the challenges across project delivery. Martin's already called out the task force paper, and you might have seen some of the organizations involved with that. There's various other meetup presentations that have covered that in detail. But for me, the headline and the thing that I come back to always is the research in that space that says that actually we're only delivering 1 in 200 major projects, and that's across all of these different sectors, but 1 in 200 projects getting delivered on time, on budget, and within the benefits envelope that was laid out at the beginning of that particular project. That is just mind-blowing for me, and that is one of the things that really drives me and my focus in this space, as does the nature and climate emergencies that we're facing, and then some of the aspirational, inspirational activities that the UK would like to get into around artificial intelligence. I mean, yeah, that's a much broader discussion, not for today really. So predominantly I'm going to be focused on the left-hand side, but happy to take questions and pick things up as the conversation goes over on the right. Again, putting this presentation together, I was struck by needing to find some kind of handrail, some kind of mechanism to help guide us through it. There are so many different kind of change and transformation frameworks and theory research that's out there, and these are just a few of them. And of course, there's also this balance that needs to be played between what is happening inside the business and also this broader community activity. So not any one of these really fits perfectly for everything, but I thought I would try and use Kotter as that sort of step to help us through the conversation. First up, thinking about these needs and the way that we've kind of thought about needs, and particularly for me, it's helped me to grow the space that I've been able to move into. It's massively helped by, as a family business, the guiding principles that we have, the focus that we have around the long term and longevity, and so tend to think over very broad periods of time. That has meant that our strategic priorities are aspirational, inspirational, and give people space to think about how we can start to move towards those priorities, which then moves into project teams and how projects can help to best leverage the risk and opportunities that they're having to manage, and team efficiencies, opportunities for improvement that exist. And then at the end of that, you have individual opportunities and the space for people to grow and develop and do things slightly differently. And actually, that alignment of all of these needs is something that I've been very conscious of needing to fit together, knit together as we've developed. But the other thing that I've done in here is sort of flip that almost on its head, that pyramid on its head, to start with the needs of the individuals, and particularly around talent, and of these the 7 lean wastes plus talent, or 8 lean wastes depending on who you talk to. That focus around people for me is absolutely critical for the way that we've been able to move some of these things forward. So a couple of really specific examples. Yeah, I knew that the way that we were doing it wasn't ideal, and that we could do it quicker. So I wrote a piece of code and saved myself 10 minutes a day. Now you add that up, and that's some really substantial savings over the course of a year for an individual. Likewise, this was a really boring, repetitive piece of work that I had to do. I didn't want to do it, so I wrote some code to change that. They are the needs that people have got. They are the sort of challenges that prevent a lot of other top-down initiatives from taking place, because you never actually reach the people that need to make a change, because everyone else is too busy to give the change activity, the transformation activity, the time that it needs. So by focusing on people and individuals, we've been able to make a sense of that and make a need and urgency at an individual level.
That's really cool, Gareth. So in terms of those needs, do you see that those needs are all internally driven? Are your clients driving this? Supply chain driving it? Where's that need coming from?
So I think it's a little bit of everywhere, but increasingly we're starting to see clients wrestling with a lot of these challenges as well. And this is something we'll probably pick up in a little bit more detail later on, but for clients, and in fact for everyone within project delivery, there's a massive challenge around the ownership of the data. And because we are so collaborative as teams delivering projects from lots and lots of different organizations, the way that the data is strung together or not is a real minefield. And actually there are more and more clients that are starting to recognize that actually, and particularly this is prevalent or becoming more so in the public sector, is if the public is paying for some of these projects, then how much of that delivery data is owned by or accessible by or open to the public? And that is a massive, massive minefield if we're not careful of opening up a can of worms. So, and I think clients are, and we're certainly starting to have more conversations with people about accessing data, driven by this need for clients to want to. So the really obvious one is, if we're going to build 40 new hospitals in the UK over the next 5 or 10 years, how do we make sure that the 40th hospital is continuously learning or has learned from the 39 that have come before it, in the way that we're delivering them, rather than delivering each of these things as a completely unique, completely one-off activity.
Cool.
So, and then from understanding and starting to think about these needs across the various different levels, we very quickly, and I mean, yeah, this goes back to some conversations that you, James, and I were having a couple of years ago around some of the technical migration of data. And I can see James smiling at that piece of work. But what that did, and it was a really, really small piece of work, but we found a team with a need, team of 2 with a need to migrate a large data set of legacy data from one place to another. And actually we were able to demonstrate that you could do it in some quite advanced ways and do it very rapidly, much more so than we would have otherwise been able to do. And that just started to open up people's eyes as to the possibilities, which led us to starting to think more about how we could support some of the business development activities that we've been involved in, and I've spoken at length about some of those things previously. What it also did was, and I mean it came from the community saying, look, actually we don't want to just listen to people, we want to play with data. And we were in the position to put some of our data forwards once we'd cleansed it and anonymized it, and we still got loads of feedback that first time round to say that our data was rubbish and they couldn't do half the things if that they would like because of the quality of the data. But that just drove us forward, and the insights that we were getting even from that small amount of crowdsourcing was it was fantastic to see, really inspirational to start looking at our data, visualizing our data in ways that we'd just not done before. And from that, we then get these tactical improvements. We find opportunities to grow out the people that are involved in the conversations as we're growing the conversations. So we've got lots and lots of people then that start to become, and this is inside our business and also across the community, that are really at the cutting edge of these big ideas and how they're developing.
So Gareth, I got a question from the audience.
Sure.
So did you know the future steps that you were doing were tactical improvements, or did they evolve into more strategic improvements naturally?
So it definitely evolved, and the horizon that we were able to look at this, or the horizons that we were able to look at this definitely evolved from some very tactical things of, look, this is something that we can do, to that much longer term, sort of much more strategic thinking. I think what we did have, though, from a very early point, and this was when Martin and I met, we ended up having a really fascinating conversation about the learning legacies of projects, and how actually there must be a better way than having people sit through lessons learned workshops to change the way that we transfer learning from people to, or person to person, and project to project. So with that idea, and that idea has grown and developed as we've moved forward.
So Gareth, why did you start tactically and not starting with a big strategy? It's a big change project such as this. You need to know where you're going, etc. So why did you not start with a massive strategy that lays all this out versus starting tactically? Because a lot of people struggle with that.
So, in fact, I mean, that data, information, knowledge, insight slide, I have a feeling that was one of my early sort of papers to the board on some of this stuff. And I think that was, we were in a position to demonstrate that people wanted these things in pockets. And then we were able to start to string these pockets together as we were expanding the sort of strategic ambitions of what we were trying to do. And those things were useful, helpful for the business in and of their own right. So actually we were getting the returns on investment for those other teams that were doing some of these things. And I think it comes into the approach that we've taken, which is very much that of the collaborative inside the organization, and almost a matrix within the organization. So the things that we're doing are meeting the needs of our project users and our project teams.
Great.
So I mean, we've sort of started picking over some of this step already in terms of that vision, but that vision was able to grow out in several different directions. So we've talked about the task force, the construction data trust, and that was something that early on, over a year ago, our chief exec came out and said that this is something that we were doing, and as an industry, we needed to show some leadership and move these things forward, and we've been in a position to pick that up and move it in that direction. The golden thread of information is very specific to the Grenfell tragedy and the aftermath of that, and the implications for the sector of the building safety bill. That's really starting to recognise the need for good information management. And of course, that is so closely tied to what we do with data. So much of this also ties in, and I've mentioned already, into the supply chain, but we're setting out an opportunity for showing some real support and assistance to our supply chain, and also for our clients as well, getting them involved in this, because this is bigger than any one organization, far bigger, and it gives us that kind of, as people, we have this natural desire to coalesce around ideas that we can move towards, or that we can work towards, and this starts to create the mechanism, the framework for that. And then, of course, way down in and amongst all of that is that there are some fantastic opportunities for individuals. And I think it comes back to what I was saying about flipping need on its head and focusing on the individual there.
So Gareth, can you just explain, right? So if you're a big company, you've got loads and loads of data, why would you be opening your data up to anybody else if you are like, if you've got loads of it, you've got more of it than anybody else? And in terms of supply chain, you've got a massive supply chain. So what do you do about managing all of that?
So in terms of opening up data, democratizing that data in various different ways, there are lots and lots of different ways that it can be done. But I think for me, it comes back to, in fact, you put this as, and others have said, if we're on a maturity scale of 1 to 10, we're perhaps at a 2 in terms of the kind of the quality and the volumes of data that we could be collecting and that we need to be collecting in order to hit some of the really high notes around machine learning, artificial intelligence. So yes, I might have the most data at the moment, but my pond, my lake of data is going to be swamped by all of these other initiatives and innovations that are going to be coming out from lots and lots of other organizations. So just from a volume point of view, there's opportunities for collaboration. From a quality point of view, we're learning so much more by sharing some of our data through the hackathons and through some of the work that we're doing on the data trust. The thinking that we're putting forward around that we're getting out of it is really, really substantial. So it's that open approach that is really assisting us in this way. And that ties into a lot of the latest thinking from organizations like the Open Data Institute that's founded by Sir Tim Berners-Lee, and also things like the government's data strategy, national data strategy, various other things that are setting a direction that is going to be very difficult for anyone in individual organization to sort of swim against this stream. And we think that actually we should be getting behind it and making it happen rather than trying to hold it back. In
terms of data ownership, who owns the data? So if you're paid to deliver a hospital, who owns that data?
I mean, it's on the one hand a really good question, because who does own the data? On the other hand, is it the right question? Because that data, for me, it's what are we using that data for? And actually, I could own all of the data and not do anything with it. Actually, on the flip side, I could be working with lots and lots of other organizations who, that is my data, but they're doing fantastic things with it and are innovating and are creating new ways to do things very, very differently. And I think that is that collaborative approach is a far more sustainable future that we're looking at.
Yeah, I think there's challenges as well. So if that data is eventually owned by the client, for instance, and they say, right, if I'm paying for this hospital, I want a full data pack that goes with it. So I want to see all your costs. I want to see all of this, all of that, all of everything else. It feels like if we're doing that, if you want to share that data with somebody else, you've got all the cost information in there. You're into things like collusion, for instance. So it feels like if we're not careful and we bimble into this, we just create a huge amount of problems for everybody, because you can't leverage that data then because you're into legal disputes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, what was that last point?
What's your thoughts about?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
overall direction of travel, where we're trying to go with this, and some clients are trying to think in that way.
So I see this as an ecosystem. Everybody's going to have data that they're going to be using for different things, and actually it's the use of the data that's the important thing. The challenge that we've got around ownership of data by one particular client. I mean, as you say, and we'll go back to the hospital example, if you've got 5-10 contractors that are all providing their data packs to the NHS and to the client, what's happening to that data? How do we know that actually our data isn't being passed on to all of those other contractors in a way that we aren't comfortable with? Surely everyone needs to have a seat at that table to be able to understand who's comfortable and how to best move that forward. But I mean, this is challenging stuff. This is right at the cutting edge of the questions that are issues that not only our industry, project delivery, but also lots and lots of other sectors are dealing with, getting into all sorts of questions around data ethics and, as you say, legal disputes, and getting bogged down for years and years in one-to-one legal disputes, when actually there are models and there are mechanisms that we could start to explore that just take a lot of that difficulty, a lot of that challenge off the table.
Cool. Hey, James, I think you're on mute. Your other one's on mute.
Oh, did you? No. Did you?
He's got some questions.
Still on. He's got lots of questions, but his headset's died.
Yeah, he's got some new kit as well.
New headphones.
There we go.
Have you, obviously not in McAlpine, Gareth, but have you come across any cynics? And if you have, what have you done to kind of overcome those barriers?
Yeah, so lots. There are lots of people that I think are not yet in the right place on this. And what we do to overcome a lot of that is I flip back. Some of this stuff, there's just an absolute moral obligation for us to be doing something differently. So you look at health and safety data, where that has the level of fatalities that's flatlined for 5, 6, 7 years, because the amount of data that is shared with the regulator and the insights that the regulator and the industry is able to make from that level of data, it means that we can't get any better. We have to find a new way of doing things differently to stop people from losing their lives. You can absolutely make the same case from a sustainability point of view. The nature and climate emergencies that I mentioned earlier, we have to find better new ways of doing things. And then of course what you find is that all of these different data sets are so intrinsically interconnected that and in fact most of it is not commercially sensitive. It's bundled up in everything else, and so the whole thing's packaged in that way, when actually you can start to unpick it, and actually we are doing it in a lot of instances, but just not through a sustainable mechanism. So productivity working groups that will that may well sort of share Excel files as a one-off to understand how we can improve productivity, but then not able to learn the lessons from that particular piece of work and expand it further abroad. The learning legacies of Crossrail and the Olympics, and how we do something different for HS2, all of these mega projects and what happens with them. There are some. And if I talk primarily about construction in these numbers, but in the UK in construction, if there's 130 billion a year spent on infrastructure and on construction, half of that is the public purse. I mean, what do we do? Yeah, how can we find better ways of spending our own money? There's a whole series of things that that you can get to, and what we find is that often then the cynics will make that recognition that actually for that one area there is an opportunity. And I think that's where we're going at the moment. Is we're not trying to do all of this. It's massive, as I said. Is what are those opportunities for us to prove this out, for us to expand the work that we're doing, and it will naturally grow from there.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you, Gareth.
Yeah, no problem. So next up then, I mean, this fourth step, if you like, thinking about how we can communicate and expand the vision that we've got, how we can develop and inspire more pioneers, if you like, more others that can take up this mantle. doing that in such a way, and we're all faced with so many sort of competing priorities at all of those levels that we've talked about. But securing investment, and significant investment, becomes a real challenge. And actually, particularly for us through the UK's apprenticeship levy, although it's different in the different nation states, what we can do there is spend money that is otherwise sat unused. There's very few organisations that have been able to leverage their apprenticeship level in such a way that they can spend it. So, and what that's also doing is it's making sure that we're upskilling our own people. We are giving people and this is again across all of the organisations involved in this, giving the tools to, and teaching people to fish, if you like, to be able to, and teaching them, giving them these superpowers, these opportunities to do things that no one else has done before, and that's really sort of inspirational at a personal level. There's always setbacks, and I think learning to just ride those through and ride those out is something that I've had to kind of come to terms with.
Touch on some of those, Gareth. So I've been with you on this journey for a few years, and you have started off with a vision to come in with a big, bold strategy, and you wrote your strategy and you wanted a budget to go and do it. And COVID came along, and now you're trying to do it a lot more organically. Can you share some of that pain that you've been through, some of those scars that you've had, and give people advice on that?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think it took us a while to build the momentum and build the understanding to be able to sort of put forward that budget to be able to start to grow some of these things. We'd started down that route at the beginning of 2020, and then COVID struck. Almost everything was shut down. As non-operational staff, I was furloughed, as were various members of not only my team, but the various other teams that we work with. Consultants that we brought in to help us with some things, we lost lots and lots of the momentum that we'd started to build. But the one thing that we were able to keep going, I say we, it was our first cohort of apprentices, who were, many of whom were site-based, and many of whom were kind of wrestling with massive additional workload from their day job, were able to keep pace with their learning and move themselves forward. And I mean, coming back to that after me being furloughed was such a big boost to just see how everyone else was picking this up and moving it forward. And that gave us then the opportunity to go back and put forward 2 more cohorts last year, and so starting to rebuild that capability. I think where we've had to other setbacks, we've been restructured, we've this is all out in the press, so we've restructured, I've moved teams, we've had various other changes that have taken place. The strategy that we had and ambition for that has had to be completely reset and realigned to some of the project goals that we've or the needs of our project teams, and making sure that the activity that we do is far more sort of targeted in that regard. But all of this has been possible because of the mindset that we've got of this being iterative, and we are going to have to completely reinvent various things as we go, and we're going to have to change things, and one of our project data analysts said to me the other day, we're in uncharted waters on a lot of this stuff, and we have to just be able to to roll with the waves at times.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think we're now starting to see that pull from the business come through of our project directors starting to call for some of the things that our project data analysts have been doing and have been putting together. So together we've kind of found our way through this.
So could you give a couple of examples of the sort of thing they're asking for? So why does a project director want this stuff?
So I think there's probably, there's one key area is around just having that better understanding of what's at there, particularly with the way that sites are at the moment, the way that lots of businesses are, is that bit more disconnected. You've got people that are working in different locations, but really wanting to make sure that they've got as much data as possible at their fingertips so that they can make better decisions, or that they can be aware of and informed of the things that are happening around them, that they and once you get some of that, it's you really start to want more of it. I think there's one angle there, and another is around sort of reporting and the way that we do reporting, and it's given us the platform to really start to rethink that bring that back to understanding the requirements for that. What is the decision that we're going to make on the back of that, and how are we going to do that, and building it up to almost enterprise reporting, from capturing the data in the right place at a project level, and doing the right things with it from a data infrastructure point of view.
So why can't you just do that with a Power BI expert? Why do you need all these other things?
So I think that is just the tip of the iceberg of what's possible. And yes, you could do it with well, you could do certainly some of it with Power BI experts and centralized teams, but particularly from a project environment with lots and lots of different clients, that there are things that need tweaking and that need monitoring at that project level that become very difficult to centralize and very difficult.
Data engineering, that sort of stuff.
Pardon?
The data pipelines and the data engineering.
So pipelines engineering, that becomes something that you can, to a large degree, you can start to centralize, or at least you can start to build that once. There are still lots and lots of instances of particular projects that are secure, or they have various different considerations or client requirements and requests as to how or where they want their data to be put. So if you try and do it all centrally, then you end up almost with a one-size-fits-all approach, and you need to be much more flexible than that in making sure that you can deliver for so many diverse sort of project environments.
Cool.
Another question, Gareth. Sorry if I'm interrupting you.
No, it's fine.
So a question from the audience. You've mentioned the project data analysts a few times and the things they've been up to. Are you seeing particular roles in McAlpine that are using data more than others? Are any unexpected roles that are using data, or is it quite even across the board? What are your thoughts?
So I was reading an article the other day that was pointing out how it was obvious that your BIM team members would start to get much more involved in your digital strategy. And we have a couple of 2-3 of our team that are our BIM managers, but actually we've made conscious decisions to pick other roles as well, and to make sure that it's not all the same people. So much.
What's BIM? What's BIM? Can you just explain BIM?
BIM. So building information management, building information modeling. So the 3D models and the asset data for a digital asset that's a replica of your building. So I guess that is the thin end of the wedge of where digital activity has come into construction. And what we're doing with our apprentices and our apprenticeship, what they're doing is finding other roles and other pockets where there's really kind of fertile ground to do things differently. Information management, which is very closely associated with BIM, we're seeing lots of people that are getting involved from that aspect. Quantity surveying and commercial management is another area that we're seeing a lot of take up. But I guess first and foremost for me, it's individuals that are seeing that there is an opportunity for the work that they're doing and are taking that and applying these new skills to the discipline that they've got. We had a session back end of last year as a team where we talked about the different sort of potential future routes and sort of development paths that they might have once they come to the end of their apprenticeship. And I think we started with 8, 10, and then by the end of the session we'd got 15 or so more different routes and different paths that people can take with this. So it's very flexible to the roles that people have got. And I mean, I've not mentioned our engineers, huge opportunity in there and in lots and lots of other areas as we grow this. But what I'm really excited about and where we've kind of got to is we can start combining different skill sets, disciplines in different ways, and we can start to bring together, it might be 3 BIM managers, or it might be a BIM manager, quantity surveyor, and a design manager. Bring 3 people with different core disciplines together, but are united by this understanding of what they want to do with their data, and are really able to kind of pick that up and drive forwards with it. So we've kind of talked a little bit about this, but really this was a chance for me to ask the audience as to your understanding of the difference between data analysts and project data analysts. What's the difference? Is there a difference? So should I stop sharing for a minute, James?
Yeah, if you stop, Gareth, I'll flash it up for you.
I've seen there's a lot of questions coming in, James, as well. I should pick some of them up, and we'll have an open mic at the end as well.
Yes, I'm doing my best. They're coming in thick and fast.
Cool, thank you.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Completely different. The same thing. So different skills, similar skills, but do different things is the vast majority.
So what's your view on that then, Gareth?
So I think that some of the skills are the same, but actually increasingly what will happen is that there'll be a divergence of, you'll have a team of analysts potentially in a central or in a sort of regional role sort of thing, roving, and then you'll have project data analysts that are really plugged into the needs of that particular project and embedded within project teams. So they've got its skills for, as I've said, our engineers, skills for our BIM managers, etc. So I would see it as quite different. I'd be verging on that sort of, completely different. I'm definitely, at that end of the spectrum.
I'm with you on that. I think that if you've got an analyst, they've got an analyst set of skills, right? And that's what they do for a living. They do the analyst stuff. What we're doing here is giving project professionals these superpowers to be able to see around corners, predict what's going to go wrong, get better at risk assessment, etc. So it enables them to do their job better. Now, if you don't give a project professional those skills and you've got a separate analyst, you degrade that project professional over time, because the analysts will get better and better and better and start to creep into their job. So what is left for that project professional to do in the future? A question mark, right? So I think that what we're talking about doing, and it's a bit like back in the day when I first started work and there was a typing pool, you used to get all your typing done, word processors came along, and then the typing pool was decentralized. There was still something there to do massive reports and things, the really difficult stuff, but it was democratized. And we've got the same thing with low code. So all this low code applications, once you understand it, you understand the art of the possible, then you can go and deploy these things yourself to be a super powered project professional. So I think
I'd agree with that. And I think so then your data analyst role becomes much more akin to a data scientist, or they have a very niche skill set that that is brought to bear on very particular projects. And it might reach the stage where actually that in itself is a skill set that starts to get democratized. I think, I mean, these are at some point someone would have had this conversation about maths, wouldn't they? And yeah, literacy and numeracy, of bringing those sorts of skills to the masses. Is it worth, I'm conscious of time, is it worth just rattling through the next couple of Menti questions, because if we got, and then
yeah, I don't think it's running at presenter pace, so I think we can drop into the next slide if you want.
Yeah, why don't we, because yeah, there was only one slide that I'd got, which, okay, so in terms of barriers that people are encountering, access to data, that's a really common challenge for startups in particular and small businesses. Money, interesting, yeah, lack of knowledge.
With an exclamation mark.
Yeah. Yeah, the
and can you scroll
day
down?
Job understanding, yeah, lack of understanding from management.
Sorry, I didn't realize that was me.
Lack of understanding at a senior management level.
Attitudes.
Yeah.
Again, more money stuff.
Yeah.
Reliance on Excel.
Simple concepts to be used as management don't understand statistics. Knowledge and awareness of leadership in the company.
There's a lot of leadership people in here as well, so.
Yeah.
I think we've all got a role to play in this. You know, if you're in a leadership role, you know, you've got an obligation to start to understand some of this stuff, I think.
Yeah. And I think for me, that kind of comes back to the conversation that we were having earlier about these early pioneers and leaders. And for me, a lot of that started through the community, to be honest, and talking to people and getting more of an understanding outside of the organization, and then seeing what I could bring back to Sir Robert McAlpine. And I was lucky, but at the same time knew what I was doing when I approached one senior leader in Grant Findlay, who has also spoken and sits on the task force and is very engaged in a lot of this activity. There's a real sense of and an understanding from him, he's our strategy and innovation director. And together we've been able to work through and help each other with a lot of this stuff. And so I think it can only take just that one person that you can bounce ideas around with and then land on something that you can do, and then iterate it from there. Find something else that you can take and take to somebody else to say, you know what, we've done this cool thing. Can we or we've got this opportunity to start upskilling ourselves. We think it's valuable, and actually there's very little cost involved in doing it to get started. I think, I mean, just picking up where one of the things that I see, and this is becoming more and more apparent, is that there's a blind spot for data, and there's a blind spot for the understanding that people have got between data and digital. And for me, it's really clear. Digital is the adoption of the tools that we've got, and how many people are using those tools. Data is the asset that is captured by those tools, and it's therefore what you do to sweat that asset and what you do with it to do new things, to gain insights, and that I think splitting that out as almost like an X and a Y axis, and you need both of these things. You can't do one without the other. Has really started to help to kind of get additional traction. Competing priorities and competing with different priorities is another big challenge. Historically, we've had a focus around systems, and it's this whole, and we've talked about this previously, but the whole understanding of being tool-led or platform-led or data-led, and letting the data sort of bubble up and lead the way in terms of, and the data activity lead the way in the direction that we're going. But that's it takes time and hard work and belligerence in a lot of cases to kind of push some of that stuff through. The return on investment and the money question is a really big one. And how you make that happen.
And what's your advice for that, Gareth? For demonstrating return on investment? And
so it's got to be tied back to the benefits and the way that benefits get managed. The approach that we've taken is enabling us we're scaling that as we go, but if in a situation where you have to demonstrate a large return on investment, then you have to be able to focus on those on the benefits or the expected benefits and returns, and being able to really measure that and manage that, and be laser focused on the delivery of those projects that are going to deliver that return on investment. And then you can start to build out with roadmaps, and you can start to look at the way in which skills get deployed. Cool. Shall we move on to the next question? I don't know, in terms of this, so this is I'd be interested to see.
It's a good point that just came in from Jonathan then, I think it was. So he said demonstration of return investment as a barrier to starting exploitative work is a dog that chases.
Barrier to starting exploitative is a dog.
In the chat.
Yes.
So have you got any thoughts on that? Is that you can return investment?
So I guess it depends where you start. I mean, if you've already got the investment, you've already received the investment, and you're then having to demonstrate it, then you need to be able to, and whether or not that is financial, or whether or not that is the wider benefits case that you've got around that. If actually, I mean, you can become spiraling down and down into that. I think what we're probably doing is coming up and out, and being able to leverage the and demonstrate from what we've done previously that we can get some additional investment for more and other things. But that's taken quite a lot of time for us to get to, and I think is part of the sort of attacking this in the way that we've attacked it. The other thing, particularly from the approach that we've taken, the with our project data analysts, many of them being embedded within projects and within other departments, and line managers getting involved in the professional development of these individuals, it becomes a really it's those teams and those line managers that have got to see that this is going to be valuable for them and their people, and put some belief behind it. But it's funding training that's paid for through the apprenticeship levy. We're seeing a demonstrable return on the investment of the time that people are spending learning, as opposed to being in the office or at work the whole time. Okay, so that's just in terms of this software licensing. It's already a problem for 10% of people. It's regularly an issue for 22%, and so I guess we're looking at a third having regular and big issues, and 2/3 that are in the other camp.
I think this, Gareth, is where you are in your maturity journey. If you're just starting off and you want to turn on Power BI, then that's one thing. If you want to get into the Azure platform and start to turn on chatbots and turn on automation and machine learning models, it's another level of complexity. So I think,
I completely agree.
I think and when we asked this question, we probably should have gone back to that and said, where are you at the moment in terms of your?
No, I think you're right. The thought had come to me, but it was probably while your laptop was crashing at the beginning of the session. So yeah. Never mind. Cool. Shall I flick back to, or are there more questions that people have got? Do you want to, while I'm flicking over to the?
Well, there's another Menti one here, but
yeah, we'll come to that one.
Right.
I've got
a question from the audience. Again, sort of talking about roles within McAlpine, and you spoke a little bit, Gareth, about what happens after the data analytics apprenticeship. But
yes,
what are you thinking in terms of, do any of those options include kind of hybrid roles in the digital workforce? So do you see maybe surveyors that have got improved data analytics skills, or planners using predictive algorithms or machine learning algorithms? Do you see any of those roles emerging as the sector evolves?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the and for some it'll be the sort of same niche that has been carved out already through the time that they're spending learning, and it'll continue to do that and progress at that pace. For others, it'll be and it'll become much more of a balanced sort of doing some of this stuff half the time and some of what they've done previously, but it's completely within the gift of all of us, but particularly for our the skills that our project data analysts have got to be able to take this and run with it in the direction, at the pace, and take it wherever they want to go. I think that's the really one of the really exciting things about all of this, is that it's still so emergent, is that there are lots and lots of opportunities for people to kind of write their own stories.
Yeah, sure. Exciting times. Yeah,
absolutely. Cool. So I think I've got 2 or 3. Yeah, well, we've got 3 steps left. So nearly through this. In terms of sort of demonstrating momentum, we've talked a lot about some of this stuff already, so I wasn't going to particularly dwell on it. I think one of the things that we're starting to see the benefits of now is our sort of alpha beta live process. Not that we tend to refer to it like that internally, but it's this mechanism whereby we can do something on one project and try it and get it to a point that it works and is demonstrating a return on investment for that particular project, and then replicate it or copy it, plug it in onto a second project, start to understand how we can replicate it at scale, and then be in a position to push those things out much more broadly. That combined with a backlog and lots of things that we would like to do, it starts to give us our roadmap, and it starts to give us our set of priorities that we can start to then prioritize on a whole range of different sort of parameters.
Gareth, what's your advice? Because you're a waterfall-based company, right? So you do things in a waterfall approach and using agile methods. So what's your advice to people who's trying to do this and they're working with people who don't understand agile? Do you stay away from all the language of agile and just keep it in, what's your advice?
Yeah, I tend to keep away from the language of agile, but then again, I mean, there's an awful lot of that whole kind of body of knowledge that is extremely useful to bring to this. For me, the most useful thing has been in fact, it was one of the very early events that we had, probably 2 years ago or even longer, when Dave Snowden came and spoke to us about Cynefin frameworks. And actually within that yes, you've got your waterfall program to deliver a big project, but within that you've got some complicated elements that you need to break down into more detail, and you are then having to charge through those things at a much more kind of rapid pace. You've got complex things that actually require a very different way of operating, and then you've got chaotic unexpected things that take place, and all of these things are happening on our projects already, regardless of the of whether or not we planned it to be a waterfall project or an agile project or anything in between. And it's just recognizing that there are these different states, and at different times one or other or more are going to be better and more appropriate to that particular endeavor that you undertake. Yeah, I'll if I can get this to work, I'll move on to building on what we've done and expanding this platform. I'll come and I'll talk about this image that probably doesn't make much sense in a couple of minutes, but all of the things that we're doing, we're in a position now to start deepening and embedding and iterating the foundations that we've got, the processes that we've got in place, the tools that we're starting to use, the deliverables that we're developing. All of these different aspects we can start to improve upon, and that's coming through our apprentices and through the relationship that they are starting to build with our central development team, so that we've got a really sort of symbiotic relationship between our IT function and our project teams, and that recognition that actually we need to find a way through this, and sometimes it's going to be difficult because nobody's done it before, but we can get through it. The data advisory group that we support for the APM and starting to think more about getting started as a project data analyst and what you need, the innovation opportunities, benefits management, the task force data access work stream that Sir Robert McAlpine is leading. And so a quick plug, if there's anybody that is facing data access challenges or wants to come and get involved in that would be great. But then, so to finish this slide, the diagram that we've got on the left-hand side is an image from the work that we've been doing around the construction data trust. So this isn't just an idea anymore. This is us starting to build out this graph database. And Martin mentioned the speaker coming up next month, who I'm really keen to find out what they're doing with graph databases. But this is transformational technology that needs a level of understanding and a level of detail to apply it that nobody's really starting to, or we are only just starting to put our heads into and get an understanding of. But the power of it is really quite something. So to give you a sense of this diagram, you've got in the yellow, you've got one of the core components or high level priorities. In the blue, you've then got a breakdown of the individual sort of use cases that relate to that. In the sort of purpley color, you've got individual personas or people that are related to those use cases. You've then got red solutions. So, and then when you start looking at this in a bit more detail, you see all the connections that you've got between these different things. And some of these nodes on here are far more interconnected than other nodes. So actually, if that is a solution that's really well interconnected to lots and lots of use cases, if we focus on that solution, we can solve lots and lots of problems, potentially. Of course, I mean, these are just a few dimensions to it, because you have to start thinking about the data elements to it. What data have you got available? What quality is that data? And that's something that Martin, Russell from Mace and myself are working through to start just thinking about this. And I mean, that again is if there's others that are keen to start think about that in a bit more detail, then do come along and get involved in it. Sorry, Martin.
We're picking this up through the data quality work stream as well. So
yes, yeah, of course, yeah.
Where we're trying to expand it out and really understand it, and the solutions development work stream as well. So if anybody wants to be involved in this, we're doing it through the Be the Business Productivity Initiative and joining it up with the task force work as well. All of it's been done through volunteers, and yeah, it's a mind-blowing piece of work really, and it's going to be hugely transformational.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Martin. Yeah, of course. And I mean, so what we're doing for this, the data trust, the thinking around this and the task force and the wider thinking of how you can then apply this to lots of other sectors, it all starts to knit together, because all of this stuff is just so interconnected. So this was the final kind of rung on the ladder, or the final step. Is this going to stick? So I've used this image of the Glenfinnan viaduct that Sir Robert McAlpine built many years ago, and this is a fantastic image to sort of and a metaphor really for. I see this big train of our analysts and the work that they're doing, our project delivery teams, and the way that they start to engage with data. And then there's a few of us that are in the sort of central or sort of leadership roles that are there laying track out in front of the train and building the track as the train has already left the station and is coming thundering along the line, picking up pace. So we need to be laying more track quicker, finding new and different ways of doing that, and making sure that we start to get further and further ahead of what will be multiple trains coming along behind us. So yeah, what are your thoughts on each of these different things? Which of all of these kind of things that we've been talking about, which is the one that you think is going to be the biggest challenge for us? do you want to, if I stop sharing, James, do you want to flag up what are your results?
Absolutely.
That's an interesting analogy, that, Gareth. I quite like that. You know, you're putting the infrastructure in place, and then the people on the trains are just sort of going on a journey to make it happen. And yeah, it's cool. It's a really good analogy. I like it.
Skilled people is that being the biggest challenge. Yeah, and then vision and momentum. Interesting. I guess actually what's probably more interesting is the humps that we've got.
I just don't think the urgency is there at the moment, and I don't think that people see the need to be doing this stuff now. I think if it gets driven by clients, I think the urgency will rapidly grow. So I think some of the clients out there, you know, they can transform the industry. And at the next apprenticeship intake, we got 6 people coming in from Highways England, and I see once they start to understand these capabilities and these tools, you know, they'll start to drive the agenda. So I think there's getting skilled people, and then once they understand the art of the possible and understand what can be done, that's when we start to drive the agency, because they think, you know, we're missing out on all this cool stuff. Because it is,
yeah, absolutely.
Once you start to get inside of it, it's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cool. No, that's I think whilst the average is putting everything down the middle, there's some really different skews in what's main priorities. Cool. I have to look at that in more detail. So I've got one final slide, or in fact, I probably don't even need to flash it up. It's just to say in conclusion that as far as I'm concerned, this is a future that is inevitable in one form or another. And if it's going to happen, then we should all be doing what we can to shape that and making it the best possible version that this could be, and using it as a springboard for the project delivery sector to transform the way that we go to work. So get involved in the hackathons. There's the task force that we've talked about. There's obviously these meetups, and Martin talked about the different ways that you can engage with those things. You can find me on LinkedIn. So if you have specific questions, then I'm more than happy to see if I can give you any advice around some of the things that we've kind of wrestled with. Keep experimenting, keep trying to find little ways to do things slightly differently, build the sort of the roadmap of ideas, and for a long time mine was just a list of ideas that I'd been collecting in various different ones, several lists of ideas that I'd been collecting in different places, and having that roadmap, having that understanding of how these things fit together is really quite useful for those in leadership roles, but also for individuals. What are the development steps? What are the things that once you're starting to get into this, that you want to deliver, that you want to push for, that you want to change, and what are the steps on that roadmap that you need to be taking? It's another metaphor for you, Martin, that we've is the one around some of these data skills being superpowers for people, and actually how can we make sure that we're investing in people with these superpowers and making sure that we're applying them in the right ways on projects. The ability to see round corners, the ability to the foresight for knowing what's going to come next. All of these different things, the ability to get places really, really quickly. All these sorts of things are entirely possible within the project delivery kind of landscape. So yeah, come and help us shape it. Come and get involved. And this is for me just such a fascinating space that gives us an opportunity to take loads and loads of sort of theoretical stuff that's really difficult to wrestle with and pull it all the way back to how we can make a difference today and change the way that we're delivering projects today. And I think that's such a interesting space to be working in. And yeah, so as I say, come and get involved, come and help us shape some of these things.